The moment my mother was humiliated in front of our entire family, I realized something dangerous was about to happen. And not the kind that explodes loudly. The kind that smiles first and destroys you quietly. My name is Naomi Calder. I'm 29 years old, and I work as a corporate compliance analyst based in Charleston, South Carolina. I deal in numbers, audits, and paper trails for a living, which means I know exactly how fast a careless sentence can ruin someone's life. And tonight, that sentence was aimed at my mom. The private banquet room at the Harborview Yacht Club looked perfect on the surface. Crystal glasses, soft jazz humming in the background, linen napkins folded like origami. This dinner was supposed to be a celebration. My grandfather's 70th birthday. A big deal in our family. The kind of night where everyone pretends old grudges don't exist. My mom, Rachel Calder, sat across from me. 52 years old. A former small business owner who now worked 2 jobs after her divorce. She wore a navy blue dress she'd had for years, pressed carefully like armor. She smiled politely, the way women do when they've learned survival through silence. Everything felt fragile. My younger cousin laughed too loudly. Someone clinked a fork against a plate. The room smelled like roasted garlic and expensive wine. Normal. Almost safe. Until my uncle, my grandfather's golden son, leaned back in his chair and smirked. "You know," he said casually, loud enough for the entire table to hear, "with how expensive things are now, people really should stop freeloading at events like this." I felt my stomach tighten. My mom didn't look up, but I saw it. Her shoulders stiffened. She knew where this was going. Then he said it. "Rachel," my uncle announced, tapping his glass, "if you can't afford your meal tonight, maybe you shouldn't be here. Either pay your share or step outside." The room froze. Not a laugh. Not a cough. Just silence, so thick it pressed against my ears. My mom's face drained of color. Her hands tightened around her napkin. She hadn't asked for this dinner. She hadn't ordered anything extravagant. And everyone at that table knew she'd been struggling since my dad left. But humiliation doesn't care about facts. I felt heat crawl up my neck. My heart pounded. I was ready to stand, ready to say something reckless. But my mom did something unexpected. She smiled. Slow, calm, controlled. She placed her napkin gently on the table and said, "That's fair. If we're talking about who pays, maybe it's time we look at the full balance." Every head turned. My uncle laughed nervously. "What balance?" My mom met his eyes. "Oh, I think you know." The tension snapped tight like a wire pulled too far. "Hold on, before we get into the real stuff, I want to know, what are you doing at this exact moment while hearing my voice? Sitting alone? Driving? Lying in bed pretending you're not emotionally invested already? I love seeing your answers down below in the comments." Back at the table, my grandfather shifted uncomfortably. My aunt avoided eye contact. People suddenly found their water glasses fascinating. Because here's what no one at that table expected. My mother didn't come unprepared. For years, she'd been quietly paying debts that weren't hers, covering temporary loans, helping family members who promised to pay her back. Promises that dissolved the moment she stopped being useful. And tonight she brought receipts. My mom reached into her purse. Not dramatically, not angrily, just deliberately. A thin folder appeared. My pulse spiked. My uncle's smile faded. "Rachel, this isn't the time." She tilted her head. "You're right. It's long overdue." The room felt smaller, warmer, dangerous. I could see it now. This wasn't embarrassment. This was revenge. The slow kind. The surgical kind. And she was just getting started. The moment my mother opened that folder, I knew this dinner was about to become a courtroom, and everyone at that table was suddenly on trial. My uncle scoffed, trying to recover his confidence. "Rachel, don't make a scene. This is Dad's birthday." My mom didn't raise her voice. She didn't rush. She slid the folder onto the table, directly between them, like a chess player placing a final piece. "I'm not making a scene," she said calmly. "I'm responding to one." My heart hammered so hard I was sure others could hear it. Around the table, People shifted in their chairs. Silverware clinked again. Too loud, too forced. Someone cleared their throat. No one laughed now. My uncle leaned forward, lowering his voice. What is this? Records, my mom replied, since we're talking about who pays for what. She opened the folder. Inside were neatly organized documents. Printed emails, bank statements, handwritten notes, dates highlighted in yellow, amounts circled in red. I recognized that formatting instantly. That wasn't emotional chaos. That was preparation. My uncle's face tightened. You've been keeping tabs on family? My mom smiled softly. Only on the money I was told I'd be paid back soon. A murmur rippled around the table. My aunt's eyes widened. My grandfather's jaw clenched. I saw realization dawning, slow and terrifying. My mom pulled out the first page. March 2019, she read. You asked me for $3,200 to cover payroll at your construction firm. You promised repayment within 6 months. My uncle laughed, sharp and forced. That was years ago. Everyone helps family. Of course, my mom agreed. That's why I didn't charge interest. The laugh died instantly. She slid the page toward him. But you never paid it back. Silence. Then another page. September 2020, $1,800. You said your credit cards were maxed because of unexpected expenses. Another page. April 2021, $2,500. Emergency truck repairs. Her voice stayed steady. Each sentence landed like a controlled strike. My uncle's face began to redden. Rachel, this is ridiculous. You're dredging up old stuff. My mom nodded. Then we'll keep it recent. She flipped to the last page. December of last year, she said. $4,000. You said you'd pay me back after your year-end bonus. My aunt sucked in a breath. My uncle stared at the paper. His jaw worked, but no words came out. And then my mom delivered the line that cracked the room wide open. That brings your total balance to $11,500. The number hung in the air like smoke. People froze. Forks hovered. Wine glasses paused halfway to mouths. My grandfather finally spoke. Is that true? My uncle snapped his head up. Dad, this isn't. My mom raised a single finger. Not aggressive. Not dramatic. Just enough. I have the transfers, she said. The bank confirmations. And the messages where you promised repayment. If you'd like, I can read those too. I felt something twist in my chest. Pride. Awe. A little fear. This wasn't just revenge. This was accountability, weaponized with patience. My uncle stood abruptly, chair scraping loudly against the floor. So, what? You're blackmailing me now? Over dinner? My mom remained seated. No, she said. You embarrassed me publicly. I'm simply responding publicly. Another micro-shift rippled through the room. People who had stayed silent now looked uncomfortable because silence suddenly had a cost. My cousin whispered, "Oh my God." My grandfather rubbed his temple. Why wasn't I told about this? My mom looked at him gently. Because every time I tried to bring it up, I was told not to cause drama. That landed hard. Because everyone at that table knew exactly how often my mom had swallowed her discomfort to keep the peace. My uncle pointed at the folder. Fine. Even if that's true, what does that have to do with tonight? My mom folded her hands. You asked me to pay my share, she said. I'm happy to. But since you owe me over $11,000, I assume tonight was on you. A few people gasped. Someone actually laughed, then immediately stopped. My uncle looked around, searching for backup. None came. The power had shifted. Completely. But here's the thing, my mom wasn't done. Because the next thing she revealed wasn't about money. It was about motive. She reached into the folder again and pulled out something that made my uncle go pale. And that's when I realized, this dinner wasn't just revenge. It was a reckoning. The paper my mother pulled from that folder wasn't a receipt. It was worse. It explained why my uncle wanted to humiliate her in the first place. The moment my mom slid that final document onto the table, My uncle's confidence didn't just crack. It collapsed. "Rachel," he said quickly, voice sharp now. "Put that away." She didn't. She turned the page so everyone could see the header. A legal notice. Not a lawsuit. Not yet. Something far more terrifying to someone who'd built their life on shortcuts. A notice of audit intent. My grandfather read slowly, squinting. The room went dead silent again. I felt my breath catch. Even I hadn't known about this. My mom nodded. "Yes. An internal compliance review request. Filed 3 weeks ago." My uncle exploded out of his chair. "You did what?" She looked up at him, calm as glass. "I asked questions. That was it. 2 words. But they hit harder than any accusation." My uncle paced. "You had no right." "I had every right," she cut in softly. "When you stopped answering my calls. When you laughed off repayment. When you started telling people I was bad with money." My aunt whispered. "You said that?" My uncle shot her a look. "Stay out of this." My mom didn't raise her voice. She never did. That's what made it unbearable to watch. "For 2 years," she continued, "you told family members I was irresponsible, that I needed help, that I shouldn't be trusted with finances." She slid another printed email forward. "This," she said, "is you emailing a cousin recommending I not be invited to a business investment because I was unstable after the divorce." A collective inhale swept the table. My face burned. Rage, disbelief, vindication, all crashing together. My mom's hands were steady. "You wanted to humiliate me tonight because you needed to remind everyone who you thought had power." My uncle laughed, wild and brittle. "You're twisting things." She nodded. "That's what I thought too. So I checked." She gestured to the notice again. "I worked for 12 years running a licensed catering company," she said. "I know contracts. I know invoices. And I know when numbers don't add up." My uncle stopped pacing. That's when fear finally appeared on his face. She leaned forward slightly. "Those peril emergencies you borrowed money for? They line up perfectly with cash gaps in your quarterly filings." My grandfather's fork clattered onto his plate. "You told me everything was clean," he said quietly. My uncle opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. My mom continued, voice measured. "I didn't accuse. I didn't threaten. I simply submitted documentation for review." She tapped the paper. And then she added, "You invited me here." The implication hit like a punch. This dinner wasn't coincidence. It was a preemptive strike. He tried to shame her first, hoping she'd stay small, quiet, embarrassed enough to back off. My cousin murmured, "Oh my God, this was intentional." My uncle rounded on my mom. "You're trying to ruin me." She met his gaze. "No, you did that yourself." Another silence. This one heavier. Final. Then my grandfather spoke, his voice shaking, not with anger, but disappointment. "Is there truth to this?" My uncle swallowed hard. "Dad, it's complicated." My mom smiled sadly. "It always is when someone's been lying for a long time." I watched my uncle deflate in real time. The bravado drained. The mask slipped. He looked around the table. No allies. No laughter. No escape. That's when he tried his last move. He turned to me. "Naomi," he said, forcing a smile. "You work in compliance, right? You know how these things get blown out of proportion." Every head snapped toward me. My heart slammed. This was the moment. The pivot. The trap. I could feel it. If I defended him, the pressure would shift. If I stayed silent, he'd crumble. My mom didn't look at me. She didn't need to. She'd already won. I folded my hands on the table and said, "Actually, she handled this by the book." The sound my uncle made wasn't quite a gasp. It was worse. It was the sound of a door closing. My grandfather leaned back in his chair, eyes never leaving his son. "We're done here," he said quietly. "This dinner is over." My uncle looked like he might argue. But then my mom said one last thing, something that made him freeze completely. "You might want to settle what you owe me," she said gently, "before the review becomes external." The threat wasn't loud. It didn't need to be, because everyone at that table knew. The balance of power had fully shifted, and my mom hadn't raised her voice once. I thought the dinner was over, but humiliation has a way of crawling after you, and my uncle wasn't finished trying to escape the consequences. Chairs scraped back. Napkins were tossed onto plates. The quiet elegance of the room shattered into awkward movement as family members stood. Avoiding eye contact like guilt was contagious. My grandfather rose slowly, supported by the table, his voice tired. "Everyone go. We'll talk later." No one argued. My mom gathered her purse calmly, like this was any other evening. No shaking hands. No victory smile. Just resolve. As we walked toward the exit, I felt eyes on us. Whispers followed. Not mocking this time, uncertain. Fearful. Outside, the night air hit my lungs like freedom. I exhaled. "Mom, I didn't know." She gave me a small smile. "You weren't supposed to." We were halfway to the parking lot when I heard hurried footsteps behind us. "Rachel, wait." "My uncle." I turned instinctively, my body tensing. My mom didn't. He caught up, breathing hard, jacket half off like he'd chased us without thinking. "Please," he said, lowering his voice. "We shouldn't have done this in there." My mom faced him now. "You mean you shouldn't have," she replied. He glanced around nervously. Look, I was angry. I felt cornered. She nodded. "That's how I've felt for 3 years." He ran a hand through his hair. "Just withdraw the review. I'll pay you back." The words spilled out fast. Desperate. "How?" my mom asked. "Installments. Whatever. I'll figure it out." She tilted her head. "You said that before." He flinched. "I mean it now." I stepped forward. "You mean it because you got caught." He shot me a look. "Stay out of this." My mom raised a hand. "Naomi's exactly where she belongs." He sighed, shoulders sagging. "Rachel, I could lose everything." She held his gaze. I already did. The parking lot lights hummed above us. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then he said it. "You could have come to me privately." My mom's expression hardened. "I tried. You laughed." Silence. He swallowed. "What do you want?" She didn't answer immediately. She looked at him the way someone looks at a house they used to live in. Familiar, but no longer safe. "I want my name cleared," she said. "Publicly." He frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," she continued, "you correct every lie you told. You admit you borrowed money and didn't repay it. And you apologize out loud." His jaw tightened. "That would destroy my reputation." She shrugged lightly. "So did your lies." Another pause. Longer this time. "And the money?" he asked. "I want a signed repayment plan," she said. "With dates. And consequences." I watched him calculate. Pride versus survival. Finally, he nodded. "Fine." My mom studied him. "One more thing." He exhaled. "What?" "You stop using people," she said quietly. "Or the review continues." He looked away. "I'll send the paperwork tomorrow," she finished. He nodded again, defeated. As he turned to leave, he stopped. "You didn't have to humiliate me." My mom replied without hesitation. "I didn't. You did that to me first." He walked away into the dark. In the car, I sat silently as she started the engine. I searched for words. Calculated. She smiled faintly. "No." It was overdue. We drove in silence for a minute. Then my phone buzzed. A text from my cousin. "You should know, he's already calling people. Saying you threatened him." My stomach dropped. I looked at my mom. "He's spinning it." She nodded. "Of course he is." I tightened my grip on my seatbelt. "So what now?" She glanced at me. Eyes sharp but calm. "Now," she said, "we let him talk." The confidence in her voice sent a chill down my spine. Because I knew that tone. It meant she was several steps ahead. And whatever she had planned next wouldn't require raising her voice either. When someone starts lying to save themselves, the smartest move isn't to stop them. It's to let them talk until they hang themselves with their own words. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Text after text. Missed calls. Group chats lighting up like emergency alarms. Is it true your mom threatened legal action? He says she's trying to extort him. Family shouldn't do this to family. I watched the messages roll in, my jaw tightening with each one. My mom sat at the kitchen table, sipping coffee like it was any other Tuesday.
Calm.
Unbothered. They're believing him, I said. She looked up. Some of them will. That doesn't bother you? She smiled faintly. It used to. I paced the kitchen. He's rewriting the story. She set her mug down.
Good.
I stopped. Good. She met my eyes. Every lie creates a record. That's when she slid her phone across the table. An email chain. Time-stamped. Forwarded. He'd already sent a message to multiple family members. Long. Emotional. Full of selective truths and dramatic language. I was ambushed. I felt threatened. She's trying to pressure me financially. I scanned it. He didn't deny the debt. My mom nodded. Exactly. She stood and walked to the window. People lie when they think there's no consequence. I frowned. You said let him talk. And I meant it. By noon, the calls escalated. An aunt asking for both sides. A cousin suggesting mediation. Someone else hinting we should let it go for the sake of peace. My mom listened, thanked them, said very little. By evening, my uncle sent another email. Longer. More defensive. And that's when he made his mistake. He attached a document. Repayment proposal, he called it. I leaned over my mom's shoulder as she opened it. The numbers didn't add up. Not just slightly, wildly off. He listed amounts that didn't match the original transfers. Dates that contradicted his own messages. And worst of all, he referenced unreported cash flow delays. I felt my breath hitch. Mom, I said slowly. Did he just put that in writing? She nodded once.
Yes.
He did. I stared at the screen. That's incriminating. She closed the laptop gently. And voluntary. I felt a chill. This was no longer about family drama. This was evidence. The next day, she forwarded his proposal, unaltered, to the compliance officer listed on the original audit notice. Subject line. Additional context provided by party in question. No commentary. No accusation. Just facts. By Friday, my uncle called. I could hear his voice through the phone. Tight. Frantic. Rachel, why would you forward that? She held the phone away slightly. Because you sent it. You know what that looks like. Yes, she said calmly. I do. Silence on the other end. Then his voice dropped. They scheduled a formal review. She nodded to herself. That's how process works. He exhaled sharply. You're destroying me. She leaned back in her chair.
No.
I'm letting you speak. I watched her hang up, her expression unreadable. Are you okay? I asked. She looked at me, then really looked at me. For the first time in years, she said, I'm not carrying his mess. That night, family group chats went quiet. No more accusations. No more moral lectures. Just silence. And silence, I realized, was the sound of people realizing they'd backed the wrong person. But revenge doesn't always roar. Sometimes it waits. Because the review wasn't done yet. And my uncle had no idea how much more he'd already revealed. When authority steps in, liars don't panic because they're innocent. They panic because every shortcut finally has a witness. 2 weeks passed. No calls. No emails. No family updates. It was the quietest our extended family had been in years. Then, on a Tuesday morning, my mom received a letter. Not an email. Not a call. A letter. She opened it slowly at the kitchen counter while I hovered nearby, pretending not to watch. Her eyes moved steadily across the page. They want a meeting, she said. My stomach flipped. With him. With everyone involved, she replied. The review had escalated. I drove her downtown that Friday. The building was gray, unremarkable. No drama on the outside. That's how serious consequences usually look. In the lobby, My uncle stood near the elevators. He looked smaller. Suit wrinkled. Tie loose. The confident swagger gone. He avoided our eyes. We sat in the conference room for nearly 20 minutes before anyone spoke. The silence was clinical, heavy. Then the compliance officer entered.
Come.
Professional. This is a fact-finding session, she began. Not an accusation. My uncle nodded too quickly. They started with timelines.
Dates. Amounts.
Messages. Every time my mom spoke, it was brief. Factual.
Exact.
Every time my uncle spoke, it was defensive. Rambling. He contradicted himself twice in the first 10 minutes. I watched the officer's pen pause. Then underline. At one point, she looked up. Earlier, you stated this transfer was a gift. My uncle swallowed. Yes. She clicked a button on her laptop. But in this message, you refer to it as a loan. Silence. My mom stared straight ahead. He stammered. I used the word loosely. The officer nodded. Words matter. By the end of the meeting, the tone had shifted. This was no longer exploratory. It was procedural. Outside, my uncle finally spoke. You didn't have to be so precise, he snapped. My mom turned to him. Precision is the only thing that protected me. He laughed bitterly. You always did like paperwork. She smiled slightly. You always counted on people not keeping it. Days later, the family started calling again. Different tone now.
Concern.
Confusion. Is it serious? Should we be worried? What exactly is happening? My mom answered honestly. I don't know yet. That terrified them more than any accusation. Then the news broke quietly. My uncle's company was under review. Nothing public. No headlines. But contracts paused. Payments delayed. And suddenly, the man who had mocked my mom's finances couldn't return calls. One afternoon, my aunt showed up at our door. Eyes red. Voice shaking. I didn't know, she said. I believed him. My mom listened. I'm sorry, my aunt whispered. My mom nodded. I know. That apology meant more than money ever could. Later that night, my mom sat across from me. You okay? I asked. She exhaled. I didn't plan to burn everything down. You didn't, I said. You stopped holding it up.
She smiled at that.
A week later, my uncle called again. This time, there was no anger, only fear. They found discrepancies, he said quietly. My mom listened. They're expanding the scope. She nodded. I could go to prison, he whispered. She closed her eyes briefly. Then opened them. You should have thought about that before humiliating people to protect yourself.
He didn't respond.
The call ended. And for the first time, I saw it clearly. This wasn't revenge fueled by rage. It was revenge built on patience. And it was almost over. The moment my uncle realized no one was coming to save him, he did the one thing manipulators always do. He tried to rewrite the ending. 3 days after that last call, my mom received a message she hadn't expected. Not from him. From my grandfather. Can we talk? The text read. We drove to his house that evening. The place looked the same as always. Trimmed hedges, polished wood floors, framed family photos that suddenly felt like props from a different life. My grandfather sat in his armchair, hands folded, eyes tired. I raised him better than this, he said quietly. My mom sat across from him. I know you believe that. He sighed. He says you're punishing him. She didn't interrupt. He says you could stop this. My mom looked at him gently. I can't, and I wouldn't if I could. That stung him. I saw it. You're my daughter, he said. Families should protect each other. She nodded. Families shouldn't destroy one member to protect another. Silence stretched between them. Then he asked the question he'd been avoiding. What happens now? My mom answered honestly. Whatever the process decides.
He looked at me.
You're in compliance. Is it really that serious? I met his gaze. If they're expanding the scope, yes. He leaned back, defeated. When we left, I felt the weight of finality. That night, my uncle sent one last message. Long, emotional, carefully written. He apologized. For everything. For the lies. For the humiliation. For the money. He said he was scared. He said he'd lost control. He said he was asking for forgiveness, not from the system, but from her. I watched my mom read it slowly. Are you going to reply? I asked. She shook her head. Apologies aren't refunds. 2 days later, he tried again. This time, desperation replaced humility. If you withdraw your statements, I'll sell the house. I'll pay you in full.
She didn't respond.
Then came the call I'll never forget. My uncle, crying. Not sniffing. Not dramatic. Breaking. I don't know how to fix this, he sobbed. My mom listened.
Silent.
I need your help, he whispered. And that's when she finally spoke. I needed your help too, she said softly. You laughed. The line went dead. The investigation concluded the following week. Not with sirens. Not with handcuffs. With letters. His company's license was suspended pending further review. Contracts terminated. Assets frozen. And quietly, very quietly, he was removed from several family trusts. No announcement. No confrontation. Just consequences. The family split overnight. Some blamed my mom. Others apologized. Most stayed silent. But something unexpected happened. People started calling her, asking for advice, for help, for guidance. They'd seen what happened when truth met documentation. Respect replaced pity. One evening, my mom said something I'll never forget. I didn't win, she said. I just stopped losing. Weeks later, my uncle moved out of state. No goodbye. No closure. Just absence. And the humiliation he'd tried to give her, it followed him instead. Because everyone remembered the dinner. And how the woman he tried to shame never raised her voice. The strangest part wasn't watching my uncle disappear. It was watching the family finally realize who had been holding everything together all along. Life didn't snap back to normal after that. It shifted. Family gatherings became smaller, quieter, more honest. The people who showed up now came without entitlement, without that old assumption that my mom would absorb discomfort so everyone else could stay comfortable. One Sunday afternoon, we hosted a small lunch at our place. Nothing fancy, just soup, bread, and conversation. My aunt, the same one who had avoided my mom's eyes for years, sat across from her, hands wrapped around a mug. I owe you an apology, she said. My mom nodded. I know. Not cold, not smug, just resolved. I let him speak for me, my aunt continued. I never checked. My mom smiled gently. That's how it usually works. Watching that moment, I realized something. Revenge doesn't always look like destruction. Sometimes it looks like clarity. A week later, my mom received a check. $4,000. No note. No explanation. Just the amount he'd last borrowed. She stared at it for a long time. Are you going to cash it? I asked. Yes, she said. It's mine. She deposited it the next morning. No ceremony. No emotion. Just closure, one piece at a time. Then came the unexpected call. From a local women's business group. They'd heard about what happened. Not the scandal, but the way my mom handled it. They asked if she'd speak at a meeting. About what? She asked. Boundaries, the woman said. And documentation. My mom almost laughed. Almost. She agreed. That night, as she prepared notes, I watched her carefully. You nervous? I asked. She shook her head. I'm tired of being quiet. At the meeting, she didn't name names. She told a story about trusting people who didn't deserve it. About being labeled difficult the moment she stopped giving. About how silence protects the wrong people. The room went quiet. Then applause. Afterward, women lined up to thank her. Some cried. Some hugged her. All of them understood. On the drive home, she looked lighter. Do you regret it? I asked. She considered the question. No, she said. I regret waiting. That was when I understood. The dinner wasn't the beginning. It was the breaking point. The thing that forced her to stop shrinking. Meanwhile, my uncle's name stopped coming up. People didn't ask. They didn't speculate. They just adjusted. As if he'd always been a liability they were relieved to set down. One evening, I checked social media out of curiosity. His profiles were gone. No updates. No explanations. Just erased. I showed my mom. She shrugged. People disappear when they can't control the narrative. The power had fully shifted now, not because she demanded it, but because she no longer needed permission. And there was still one final moment coming. One final twist. Because revenge doesn't always end with punishment. Sometimes it ends with inheritance. Just when I thought the story was finished, a single envelope arrived that proved the dinner wasn't the climax. It was the setup. The envelope came on a Thursday morning. Cream-colored. Heavy paper. My grandfather's handwriting on the front. My mom stared at it for a long moment before opening it. Inside was an invitation. Not to a party. To a meeting with the family attorney. My pulse quickened. Is that normal? She exhaled slowly. Not unless something's changing. We arrived at the attorney's office the following week. Polished wood. Quiet halls. The kind of place where decisions echo for decades. My grandfather was already there, seated carefully, hands folded on his cane. He looked older than I remembered. Took you long enough, he said softly, attempting a smile. The attorney cleared his throat. Thank you all for coming. This won't take long. I hated that sentence. It never did. He opened a folder. Given recent events, he began, Mr. Calder has requested revisions to his estate plan. My mom stiffened slightly. The attorney continued. Specifically, he's reassessed how responsibilities and support have been distributed within the family. The room felt smaller. My grandfather finally spoke. I failed you. My mom looked at him. Dad. No, he said gently. Let me finish. He swallowed. I watched you carry burdens that weren't yours. I believed lies because they were easier than confrontation. He turned to me, and I let my grandson grow up thinking power mattered more than integrity. I felt my throat tighten. The attorney slid a document across the table. As of this revision, he said, Rachel Calder will be named executor of the estate. I froze. My mom's eyes widened. What? My grandfather nodded. You're the only one I trust to be fair. The attorney continued. Additionally, a discretionary trust previously assigned to your brother has been reallocated. My mom's breath caught. To whom? She asked quietly. The attorney met her eyes. You. Silence slammed into the room. I felt dizzy. My grandfather spoke again. Voice steady now. This isn't revenge. It's responsibility. My mom shook her head slowly. He's your son. And you're my daughter, he replied. You acted with restraint when no one else did. The attorney flipped a page. There's one more thing. My heart pounded. Any outstanding debts owed to Rachel Calder will be formally recognized as liabilities within the estate, he said, including those not yet repaid. I sucked in a sharp breath. My mom closed her eyes briefly. This wasn't just acknowledgement. It was validation. Outside, we sat in the car without speaking. Finally, she whispered, I never wanted this. I looked at her. You earned it. She shook her head. I survived it. That night, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I heard about the changes. I knew immediately who it was. You took everything from me. I stared at the screen, anger rising. My mom glanced over. Don't reply. I hesitated. He deserves nothing from us, she said firmly. The message came again. You planned this. She took the phone from my hand and turned it face down. No, she said. He did. The next morning, the family found out.
Calls poured in.
Some congratulatory, some resentful, some confused. But no one challenged it. Because deep down, they all knew why. That afternoon, my mom said something that stopped me cold. He thought humiliating me would make me small, she said. Instead, it showed everyone who I really was. I smiled. Terrifying? She laughed. Accountable. But there was still one loose end. One final moment of symmetry. Because the next family gathering was already scheduled. Another birthday. Another dinner. And this time, the seating arrangement had changed. The last time we sat around a long table, My mom was humiliated. This time, the silence meant something very different. The restaurant was smaller than the yacht club. No crystal chandeliers. No private room. Just warm lighting, wooden tables, and the quiet confidence of people who didn't need to impress anyone. It was my grandfather's birthday again. 1 year later, I noticed at the moment we walked in the seating arrangement. My mom was placed at the head of the table. No announcement. No explanation. Just fact. People greeted her differently now. Straighter posture. Softer tone. Respect that didn't feel forced. She smiled. Thanked them. Took her seat. An empty chair sat 3 places down. No one mentioned it. The waiter came around, taking orders. When it was my mom's turn, he paused politely. And tonight, he said, everything is already covered. A few heads turned. My mom nodded once. Thank you. No one questioned it. Dinner unfolded calmly. Stories were shared. Laughter returned, but lighter, realer. Then my grandfather stood, raising his glass. I want to say something, he began. The table stilled. Last year, we failed someone at this table, he said. And we learned what happens when silence protects the wrong behavior. He looked directly at my mom. Thank you for showing us a better way. My mom didn't speak. She didn't need to. Later, as dessert arrived, my cousin leaned over to me and whispered, It's different now. I nodded. Yeah, it is. After dinner, as we stepped outside, my mom took a slow breath. You okay? I asked. She smiled. A real one. I am. We stood there for a moment, the night calm around us. You know, she said, I used to think revenge meant making someone hurt. I waited. But real revenge, she continued, is never needing to explain yourself again. That was it. No gloating. No victory speech. Just peace. On the drive home, I thought back to that first dinner. The humiliation, the shaking hands, the fork frozen in midair. And I realized something important. The moment that changed everything wasn't when my mom revealed the documents. It was when she stopped begging to be treated fairly. She simply required it. And the world adjusted. So if you're listening to this right now, if you've ever been shamed, minimized, or quietly exploited, know this. You don't need to scream. You don't need to threaten. You don't need to become cruel. You just need patience, truth, and the courage to stop absorbing someone else's mess. Because sometimes, the most powerful revenge story ends not with destruction, but with dignity. If this story hit you, like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel Silent Revenge Lab for more real stories where quiet strength wins in the end. And tell me in the comments, have you ever watched someone underestimate the wrong person? I read every single one.